Greetings, Barcadians, and welcome to another episode of the BA News Show with me, Tabs, and my co-host, Rich. I hope you're all coping okay in these extraordinary times we're living in. We've got a chock-full news extravaganza for you this week, including 5 items. We'll see. We might cut it down to 4, depending on how we get on. We like to keep these under 20 minutes if we can. So what have we got? We've got some Resident Evil 8 leaks and rumours abound. We've got a little piece that Sony have delivered on the PS5 controller. We've got some discussion of E3 replacements, given the fact that they've come out and said no direct from them this year. Google Stadia, a slight change up in response to the current situation we're living through. And finally, Final Fantasy VII, something of a review roundup, hopefully, for those of you out there who, like me, aren't too sure what they're going to do about that one. So, before we dive into things, Rich, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you've been up to this week in the gaming world?
So, this week I have been trying to hone my skills in a more dedicated way on Gran Turismo. And in the last couple of days that has meant 2 victories. So yes, it looks like it truly is a game where the more time you put in, the more reward you get out of it. So yeah, interesting. What about you, Tubbs?
For myself, well, it's mainly, as the Barcadians will hopefully be seeing, Resident Evil 3 Remake Nemesis.
Oh yes, and of course we've actually run them as an unlisted stream between all of our friends, so we've all played together, haven't we?
Yeah, that's right. We've hopefully we've enjoyed that. It started very strongly until last night's part 4, is it, Rich? And yes. We had a coming soon calamitous start though with Carlos. Where the excuses were coming out left, right and centre from me like a machine gun. Are these zombies harder? Is Carlos weaker? Are the weapons poorer?
Oh, Jill was obviously overpowered.
Yes. There was, I still think there's something in those zombies. They seem quicker and stronger. The research is yet to be done, but Barcadians, if you're playing the game, please help me. Drop us a comment and fight my cause. But yeah, it's been a lovely way to share an experience in these quarantine times. So yeah, Barcadians, if you're not too sure yourself, we're doing it via a piece of software called OBS Studio, which you can download for free, and essentially we're using that to then share and live stream to YouTube as an unlisted video. And then we're polishing that up and posting it on the channel for you guys to see. But it's working really well.
Absolutely.
But I think that's about me done, Rich. Shall we move on?
Let's go.
Right, so yeah, rapid fire as quickly as we can. We've got the first piece, Resident Evil 8, and some potential remake rumours on the bubbling. But what have we got? Biohazardcast.com have apparently let slip through via the Resident Evil Ambassador Initiative that there might be a new Resident Evil project in the pipeline, which has got the subheading Resident Evil Village, which points to the location where the game's actually set. So what are the main details there? It's going to centre around an infected village in Europe. It's going to be a continuation from Resident Evil 7, so we're thinking first person perspective. It's going to be starring the main lead from 7, which was Ethan, and also a redesigned Chris Redfield. And we're looking at a release horizon for somewhere like Q1 2021 apparently. Games Radar put this nice quote for us together, which kind of encapsulates, I think, what we're looking at. Folk horror experience infused with occult leanings. So I don't know about you, Rich, but it sounds very similar to Resident Evil 4 insofar as this European village, infected village. As we know in 4, it was all about this Los Plagos, I think it was Los Plagos, parasite, as opposed to the T virus or the viruses we've seen in previous games. But I don't think it's a bad thing. I love Resident Evil 4, so.
As soon as you said village, instantly I had thoughts of playing Resi Evil 4. So that's really interesting. Resi Evil 4, as you say, great game. So if they can build on that, unfortunately, it does look from the sort of rumours as this is going to be first person again, like Resi 7, isn't it, Tabs?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, it was quite popular though, so not necessarily for us, because you feel sick in first person, and I just find these games terrifying, to be honest, in first person. But I know there's a big crowd out there for us. They have also actually mentioned that there's going to be use perhaps of the Resident Evil 4 UI, or an inventory system. So they're going to mix in a bit of that with the Resident Evil 7. There's this concept going around of hallucinations. So that might play a big part in it. And also a stalker character, much in the vein of Mr. X and of course Nemesis, in the form of a witch. That's going to be going to take the form of like an accumulation of insects. That seems to be her kind of superpower.
Fantastic.
So yeah, it seems like they could have a good balance between action and, you know, maybe some of the traditional puzzle solving. I think Resident Evil 7 had a bit of that as well. And obviously a real fan favourite of the franchise, Resident Evil 4, if we can mix that all in a melting pot and make something cohesive there, it all sounds really positive to me.
Absolutely.
And then just to finish,
why do we think they've moved to a first-person shooter with this?
I think they were following,
obviously with 7, you know.
Well, if you remember the demo for Resident Evil 7 when it came out, it felt very reminiscent of PT, and that demo, which as we know had a big impact in terms of anticipation and excitement for the next Silent Hills experience. It felt very much it was playing on that sense of the unknown. It was playing on that kind of ghostly, haunting experience that PT built up. And in fact, 7, when it actually came out, veered a little bit away from that. It was, you know, more traditional in as far as you had enemies, you know, frequently appearing in the series. You had these stalker characters throughout the game. So it feels like they were just trying to do something new, trying to refresh the series. And I actually like the fact that we've got potentially all these plates spinning. You've got these new refresh for people perhaps new to Resident Evil. You've got the remakes coming down the pipeline for those kind of fan purists who want to see, you know, their favourite experiences remade. And then you've got, I hope that they'll start to divert it, because obviously with Resident Evil 3 it was very action oriented. I'm hoping we're going to see a Code Veronica remake, which was more, correct me if I'm wrong, Rich, it had more puzzles in it, didn't it, Code Veronica?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like we were just, you know, because we actually played that game together a lot. I felt like we were just bouncing from puzzle to puzzle throughout the game.
Yeah, that's certainly my memory of it. So they could have a really good mixture to keep everybody happy. Puzzle orientation, action orientation, and then we've got this brand new experience where they can just go wild, be a bit more creative. And if they can balance those pipelines of kind of chipping in with games every, year or so, I'm all for it.
Well, this is it, yeah, absolutely.
And just on that, they have released a survey recently, essentially saying, or suggesting that there's more remakes to come. So that is obviously they're thinking about it as well. The main contenders are going to be Code Veronica and Resident Evil 4, which I think we'd both like to see remakes of, Rich. I think there's more of a call in our hearts for Code Veronica, because the engine was older, the technology's a bit older. You know, this new engine they've got would really remake it fabulously, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like that's the next one to be done. Resi 4 was a great game, but I think it was that GameCube game. It was already sort of got a bit more spit and polish to it already. So I think the obvious one for me that needs to be brought up would be Code Veronica next, but obviously I'm biased because I want to see Code Veronica. Well,
exactly. They have remastered it, haven't they, recently, Resident Evil 4 for consoles and Switch, as we saw. Yeah. So you kind of think, you know, lean into that one and give it a real breath of fresh air, because I'm sure a lot of people missed out on it because of the fact it was Dreamcast initially, at least.
Dreamcast.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But take us on, Rich. Next item.
So, absolutely out of the blue as far as we were concerned. I think was it yesterday evening,
Sounds
perhaps? Good. So that's Wednesday of this week. Sony just out of the blue dropped basically all the details about the PS5 upcoming controller, which completely caught us left field. We weren't expecting anything at all. So it's no longer going to be called DualShock, which is actually a shock because we've spoke at length that we were fairly convinced it was going to be DualShock 5, but it's now going to be called DualSense. And I think that's a nod to the fact that they're adding like new things into the controller, such as haptic feedback in the button triggers, which are going to give you a feel of whatever you're doing, be it say driving through mud or pulling a bow, which is obviously great, and that's going to give you a sense. There's now going to be a built-in microphone to the actual thing, so you won't necessarily have to connect a headset unless you really want to, which I think is actually a really positive thing. Some people have said they're really looking forward to that. The share button's actually gone, which is one of the big things that the PS4 brought. I think they were the first to come with that type of thing, but it's not been lost completely because they've basically brought this create button, which is basically going to do the same thing but allow more of a creative element to that. So rather than just sharing what you're doing, you can add to it, I'm guessing.
Yeah, you've got to think that they maybe got connected accounts there with all sorts of different broadcasting platforms. And this create button perhaps gives you a portal into whatever your setup is. You think they're leaning into content creators there, Rich? I would say so.
I'd have thought so. I would say they've probably looked and thought, okay, most people that share their gameplay, they're sharing on Twitch or they're sharing on YouTube, or I'm guessing they want to add some creative elements to that, so it's not just a bland gaming experience. You're adding something else to it, that's easier, say, putting other things into it. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where that goes, and I'm sure there'll be more information down the line.
The easier they make it to stream, the more content's going to get out there as an advert for their product, essentially. So it makes absolute business sense. Sorry, my friend, carry on.
Absolutely. And the light bar, which, as you know, anyone that's got a PS4 is on the front facing away from you. Well, they've now basically brought that up and around behind the around the sides of the touchpad, so that you can see it while playing. The haptic feedback's actually going to mean that it can simulate touch, meaning the controller will output, say, vibrations of movement to replicate like real touch experiences. And that's just going to try and help immerse the player further in what they were doing. And I liked, there's one line I specifically took from the information that was put out with the press release, and that was one single line. It said the haptic feedback is going to be able to give players much more immersive feel, such as if they were driving through mud. And I just, in my brain, I thought, are we going to see a new Motorstorm here?
Yeah, we've talked previously.
Very, very interesting.
It's a very good candidate for that, yes. And obviously a new GT for you as well, Rich. You'd be just happy as a pig in shit, as they say, I think.
And I guess one of the biggest shocks seeing the controller is it's slightly more redesigned. It's now white and black, which is a very far removed from the current PlayStation 4 console, but I'm expecting there'll be an all-black version coming down the line. But probably the biggest thing is it looks more like an Xbox controller, I think. I think if it's quite well regarded by certainly lots of people I speak to, that the Xbox controller is one of the most comfortable feeling controllers. The way they've got it set up, where the analog sticks are, the angles of the bits you hold and stuff, and I feel like they've taken that and they've taken a DualShock 4 controller and they've sort of blended an old Xbox controller, Xbox One controller, and a PS4 controller to create this DualSense controller. And I think I think it looks good. As long as it's comfortable in the hand, I think that's the most important thing. And hopefully this has moved it so it's even more comfortable in the hand.
I think that's it. They've suggested that because of the technology inside, they perhaps needed a bit more space to house it all. But there's no doubt that it looks very similar in profile to an Xbox controller, which is no bad thing because generally speaking, I think they are considered the most comfortable controllers, or one of them at least. I mean, in terms of the design, for me, it reminded me of Stormtrooper, first of all. And we've seen all sorts of comparisons go online now to Portal, to Ludens from Kojima Productions, and I'm not entirely on board with it myself. It looks cool. It's just the white for dirt and things like that from a practical point of view is just not ideal. But I think it really does give us insight into, if this is what they've released, Rich, first of all, this has to translate into the design language of the actual PS5 itself. Surely it's going to be a similar design, this white shell-on effect and dual-tone colour.
I think you could take absolutely that if this is what the controller looks like, it's almost certain we're going to see a two-tone console, so white on black on the console, which is not unheard of, a little bit unusual. My Alien, where laptop's actually white and black, and that looks really cool. It's just historically the last 3 PlayStations have all been black, so that's why we were expecting black, and that's what we've got in our mindset as a comfortable thought, that the PS5 is going to be black.
It will sit okay under your telly then. It's just all my stuff's black, mate, so it's going to stick out like a sore thumb. But well, I think as long as they get the heating sorted, I can deal with some slight design discrepancies. But I tell you what would be great if they released 2 different models and swap the tones around. I could live with that.
So like a Dark Side of the Moon and a Lunar Light version.
Perfect, yeah. Steal it, rip it off of Alienware. Oh, we'll have to see. But moving us on, Rich. We've got the third piece today was really in the wake of E3 coming out to say there's going to be no replacement to E3 this year in the form of a digital event, which I think many of us were perhaps hoping for something to celebrate and see us into the summer.
I think, just sorry to interrupt, but more than anything, that's what we were expecting.
Yeah, some sort of a presence, because you've got to think that companies out there have been aiming towards E3, ready to unleash, a load of showreels of their upcoming content. But IGN have stepped up to the plate with their Summer of Gaming event. So this is going to be a global digital event set to begin this June to bring everybody up to date with the latest news and impressions around upcoming games and the next generation of console hardware. IGN's own words. Partners, as far as we know, are going to include 2K Games, Square Enix, Sega, Bandai Namco, Amazon, Google Stadia, Twitter, Devolver Digital, THQ Nordic and more. And I'm presuming, like any festival, they're going to be recruiting up to the very last on that to try and, literally replace E3 and perhaps this could be the start of something big for IGN each year. And then based on the format, what they're aiming to do is have publisher presentations, E3 style, pre and post discussions as they usually do when E3's around, remote developer interviews, hands-on demos and preview impressions, and of course, gameplay. So, Rich, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, firstly, I'm disappointed that we're not going to see a digital presence around the time of E3 from E3 themselves. But I guess maybe they could argue that that's not what they do. They are a games convention and they're good at putting on a games convention, not doing a digital games convention. So I could understand why they might say that that's not in our wheelhouse, but all kudos to IGN for taking the mantle on that and basically putting on this, what will hopefully be a big celebration like E3 is of everything gaming, and hopefully we can see lots of new stuff for next gen would be really good. And I'm sure this might encourage other people such as Microsoft and Sony to maybe jump on the bandwagon at a similar time and create more hype for their products around this time. So yeah, I'm excited for this, and actually June is going to be a great time because hopefully in a few months' time we'll be all feeling slightly better about the world that we live in, and we can sort of celebrate that in terms of this sort of digital marketplace that we can see all these games.
Couldn't put it better myself. I think we need something on the horizon to look forward to. It's a real good opportunity for IGN to capitalise on, well, a lot of, what would you say is the best word to describe, trepidation about E3's ageing format. I mean, it's obviously going to be interesting how they tackle it in this digital event. There's going to be live performance there, which is always entertaining because things go wrong and we can laugh at them. But hopefully as well, we'll see something that could perhaps set a precedent for the format going forwards.
Absolutely.
Right, Rich, what next up? Item 4.
So next up, item 4, Google Stadia is now free. Yes, you heard it here first. So Google have announced that Stadia will be free to anyone that has a Gmail account, or I guess creates one so they can get Google Stadia for free. Who knows? But Google have basically cited the ongoing global crisis for reason behind offering Stadia for free at this time, and they've basically in order to comply, basically, and to get Google Stadia for free, you have to reside in one of the 14 countries that it's in, have a controller, and obviously a decent internet connection, which goes without saying. And it'll be free by way of a 2-month free trial to the Pro edition of the gaming streaming service, and thereafter a charge will apply. So it sort of suggests that it'll only be free for a 2-month period. But Google have long touted that they'll be offering a free-to-use, free-to-play version of their service, which I think they've called a base version. But as yet, there isn't any sign of this. They've not mentioned this at all. But on TechCrunch, with an interview that they'd had with Google, Google said, or this is sort of what they've put in their thing, although the post from Google announcing this makes no mention of a permanent free base tier, a Google representative confirmed that it exists and players signing up today will be able to switch to it if they decide not to pay for Pro after the first 2 months. So that does suggest that if you, after your 2-month trial, if you don't want to carry on and start paying for it, you can have it for free, but it will only be the base version, so it will be limited to 1080p, 60 frames a second, and only stereo audio. So that's interesting that Google have decided to go to a free version of this for now. I know that from what I've read, it's not had the uptake that people were expecting, and it has had a troubled start to its life. What do you think, Tabs?
Oh, well, I'm in a bit of a cynical mood, as I sometimes can be, and I'm just waiting on the next Yongye video, furious in a rage about how Google are using this crisis as a way to try and improve their failing business model. Because it seems cloaked in that, doesn't it? We're going to put it out there free as like a gift, to help everybody, because entertainment's very important at the moment. But obviously they're looking to try and capture business from that in the long run. And I think for a long time we've said, haven't we, this should have been free in the first place. And the business model pivoted to, get money in other ways. It's just been a bit of a rip-off, hasn't it? Felt a bit of a rip-off and a failure from day one.
For me, the thing that would have moved this platform forward is adoption. The more people that adopt it, the better it can become, the better you can understand how it will work, the better you can understand the infrastructure required to make it work. And the only way you can really drive people to adopt it is to offer it free. Especially
when it was broken on launch and didn't live up to what they'd promised.
So for me, they should have offered it free to start with, get the adopters up, and then down the line go, okay, anyone that wants 4K resolutions, this is the additional cost, and people who are already on there would go, oh, I'm up for that, or whatever. They've gone about this what I would call arse about face, and I feel like this is now biting them in the arse, and this is one of the main reasons why they'll be moving to this free thing. And obviously they've tagged it onto the back of a global pandemic, so yes, it's not great reading, I would say. No,
not at all. I think it tells you everything you need to know, doesn't it? And in many ways, I hope they don't get that adoption that, as you point out, they so desperately need, because it just doesn't reek of heart, does it? This whole manoeuvre for me. Anyway, we'll leave Yongye to bash on them in good time. So finally, Rich, we're going to have stretch goal for this Final Fantasy VII roundup. Let's try it out then. Right, so we'll read through some of these impressions first of all. We've got 87 out of 100 on Metacritic. So far, the first comes from GameSpot, the first review, they gave it 100. Regardless of your history with the original game, Final Fantasy VII Remake is an astounding achievement. The wait for its release was a long one, but in gameplay, story, characters and music, it delivers. The wait was worth it. Go.
Boom. Trusted Reviews gave it 90. Final Fantasy VII Remake is one of the first Japanese RPGs in recent memory, setting a new benchmark for visuals and real-time combat in the series, while managing to begin retelling one of gaming's greatest tales of grandiose fashion. It's just a crying shame we have to twiddle our thumbs for wait for the next chapter.
Excellent, very good so far. What have we got here? IGN, a little bit more critical, gave it an 80. The expectations around Final Fantasy VII Remake are sky high, and it mostly manages to deliver. Its combat is top notch, its enemy variety kept me constantly entertained, and seeing this snippet of story fleshed out with real emotional arcs and the previously hidden humanity behind Midgar filled me with pure joy. The boring RPG filler and Kingdom Hearts-esque convolution that was inserted in between did not stop my ear-to-ear grin from being constant. Sorry, did stop my ear-to-ear grin from being constant, but never long enough to kill the mood completely. We're on the way down.
Interesting. So this next one comes from Gaming Bible. They give it a 70. If you've been raised on a diet of the very best role players of the past 10 years or so, Remake may struggle to hold your attention as it streamlines itself into a tunnel vision state of failing to see the bigger picture of what could have been. Fingers, toes and chocobos crossed then that part 2 sees the promise of this remake project fully blossom.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would say mostly positive comments. I mean, 87 out of 100 on Metacritic is not to be snubbed at, so definitely good things in there. I know you're not so keen because you don't like the... You much prefer a turn-based fighting, don't you, Tab?
Yeah, and at least if they were going to go with this kind of action hybrid model, I would have preferred something similar to Final Fantasy... Was it 12, Rich? Zodiac?
Yeah,
I would prefer something akin to that. And then on top of that, you know, you're hearing these things about there's a lot of gameplay filler in there. Some of the quests are quite generic and not very inventive. And as we've just heard there, this tunnel vision state, it just feels a bit too streamlined for me, and you know, missing out on a lot of what Final Fantasy games are, which are these kind of colossal grinding experiences with myriad side quests to get your teeth into, secret weapons to discover. I don't know though, Rich, you're still on the fence as well?
Yeah, I did say to you, I think it was yesterday, I said I really must download the demo and have a play with this, because I really enjoyed Final Fantasy 15. I completed 15 and I didn't really mind the combat too much. It sort of, in my mind, reminded me of PSO, which is a game that I love, and I think you love as well, Tabs. But yeah, I'm on the fence on this one. I'm not sure. I'll have to see.
Well, stay tuned, BArcadians. Let us know what you think if you decide to buy Final Fantasy VII. I know friend of the channel, Raid, has purchased it and got that awesome figurine of Cloud on the bike. So yeah, let us know what you think. And I think that's probably it for today. It's a crammer. Obviously, join us again next week, next Friday at 5 PM. If you enjoyed the video, really helps to grow, support and break us through the YouTube algorithm. Make sure you subscribed and you've rung that bell for notifications to stay up to date with everything we do. Join me on my Resident Evil 3 playthrough on hardcore difficulty mode. And yeah, I'm breathless. I need a break and a glass of water. Rich, another one for the archives.
Stamped and completed.